By the addition of a moat and subsidiary walls, as we have at Constantinople, you've got defence in depth with a very good chance, as long as you've got enough defenders, of keeping the enemy at a safe distance.
And between each wall was a gap called a peribolus. If attackers could make it past the first wall, they were then caught in a killing zone, trapped between the two cliffs of stone. Constantinople was a wealthy and tempting prize, but these walls were so dominant and defendable that no army was able to capture the city for over 1,000 years.
If the forces were evenly matched and there was plenty of food within the city, it could hold out practically forever.
But by the 15th century, hundreds of years after the fortifications were constructed, the world was a very different place. A new emperor, Constantine XI, was on the throne of the city and the empire. But to the south and east, a new religion was growing in power: Islam. Islam had conquered most of the lands around Constantinople, leaving a tiny island of Christianity surrounded on all sides.
They had managed to encircle it. They controlled all the eastern coast of the Bosphorus. They controlled the hinterland in the west. They could put a complete cordon around the city. Constantinople was the last Christian outpost in the East Mediterranean.
Among the tribes that had been converted to Islam were the Ottoman Turks.
The Turks were a Central Asian tribe that, due to infighting and rivalries and population pressures, expanded to come west, finding the borders of the old Roman Empire.
The leader of the Turks in 1450 was Sultan Mehmed II.
He'd formed the idea that Constantinople would be the crowning glory of his sultanate, and he wasted no time in preparing in his mind how he would go about this great undertaking.
Mehmed was not to be underestimated.
Being dynamic, aggressive, enthusiastic, ambitious, he was obviously going to get into action as soon as he'd gathered his forces.
He could also tap into the Islamic concept of jihad.
Islam is an expansionist religion. That was the message of the Prophet Muhammad, to go out and spread that word, just as Christianity is an expansionist religion, sending missionaries all over the world.
He sincerely believed it was his duty as a good Muslim to take the Christian city of Constantinople.
Mehmed began preparing for war.
He wasted no time preparing his huge army.
Behind their walls, the tiny Christian population of Constantinople watched helplessly as thousands of Muslims rallied to the call to arms.
There was a sense of impending doom. The attack was coming soon, and they didn't know if they would be able to resist it, despite their splendid walls.
And this was Mehmed's problem: how to breach walls that history had shown to be unconquerable. The ambitious and ingenious Sultan turned to new technology: the cannon.
What Mehmed the Conqueror did was he employed a Hungarian gun founder called Urban.
Urban proposed using a new Western technology, the mega cannon, also known as a bombard.
Building a bombard was a major undertaking. It was right at the limits of the possibilities of late medieval technology. The technical skill required was extremely high.
This was a new weapon and a very important one, but the size of the cannon was critical. This was in a new league. It was a different category of weapon. It was something so ginormous that they didn't know how to defend against it.
Mehmed had commissioned not just any bombard, but the largest one the world had ever known. Ancient Discoveries is conducting a unique experiment with this historic cannon. Nothing like it has been fired for hundreds of years. Our experts will recreate the explosion that changed the world. This cannon is a replica of the largest cannon that in 1453 the world had ever seen, and our experts are about to fire it for the first time. Mehmet II and his Ottoman army were waging holy war on the Christian city of Constantinople. His technological trump card was the bombard.
These great bombards were the superguns of the Middle Ages, the most powerful weapons on the battlefield.
They would have to be. The walls of Constantinople had stood unbreached for over 1,000 years.
The walls of Constantinople struck fear into the hearts of the attackers.
The cannon was Mehmet's answer to these walls.
This is the very beginnings of the heaviest artillery that has some chance of destroying massive masonry fortification.
Mehmet threw everything he had at the project.
He poured resources into developing the most powerful bombards he could.
Don Mansfield is an expert in firing these weapons.
It's a muzzle loading piece, that is to say that it's loaded at the muzzle itself. And when we load it, it has to go right back into the main powder chamber at the back here. The ball itself is then loaded again into the muzzle and rolled back. We're going to use an igniter today, a match, electric match, and that will set that off from some distance up on the hill there, and that keeps us all safe and sound just in case anything goes wrong.
The 8-metre-long bronze gun was cast in 2 sections, which were screwed together. 400 men and 60 oxen were needed just to move it. On the day the cannon was to be tested, no one knew the impact it would have. A witness to the siege, named Dukas, described the mood in the camp.
Public announcements were made to advise everyone of the loud and thunderous noise which it would make, so that no one would be struck dumb by hearing the noise unexpectedly, or any pregnant women miscarry.
The immense weapon could hurl stone balls weighing up to 700 kilograms over 1.5 kilometers.
These things were so massive, and I think always had such an awesome power, just from their visual bulk and mass.
Thus, the cannon was a weapon even before it was fired, a psychological one.
Mehmet's bombards alarmed the defenders of Constantinople because they'd never seen anything like it before.
But its true power was only realized when it let rip.
It was a new technology. The Byzantines had no answer to it.
But has the power of the gun been exaggerated over centuries of storytelling? There's only one way to test this: to build one and fire it.
I'm extremely excited because I love the sight of firing old cannon, and this is one of the most interesting ones to replicate. It'll be dramatic, it'll look powerful, and I think we'll get some sense of what it was like to be at the siege of Constantinople in 1453.
It's been hundreds of years since a cannon like this was actually fired.
This really is a first. It's an amazing piece of experimental archaeology.
Exactly as 500 years ago when it was brand new, no one today knows how it will behave.
Every time it was fired, he was afraid it would crack because the force of gunpowder required to throw this absolutely enormous cannonball that was bigger than anything anybody had ever seen, and the fact that it could be thrown such a long distance, that meant that it was a really invincible power.
Ancient Discoveries has built a reinforced concrete wall 90 meters from the muzzle. The strength wall is scaled to provide an excellent comparison to the damage the real gun would have inflicted 500 years ago. In 1453, the fuse would have been lit with a live flame. Today, explosives expert Sidney Alford is using an electric spark to ignite the cannon at a safe distance. The team retreat out of the quarry.
Okay. Firing! 3, 2, 1.
The cannon blasts with unbelievable power. The accuracy and power are devastating. A meter-wide hole is smashed in the wall, and circular shock waves spread out from the point of impact, weakening the rest of the structure. The stone ball itself is smashed on impact, causing debris to fly back 15 meters.
It was only a question of time before one great cannonball went in, really smashed a big hole through which the invaders could climb.
The modern test echoes the original violent explosion witnessed by the writer Christopoulos.
There was a fearful roar at first, and a shaking of the earth beneath and for a long way off, and a noise such as never was heard before. Then, with an astounding thunder and a frightful crashing and a flame that lit up all the surroundings and then left them black, the rod, forced out from within by a dry, hot blast of air, violently set in motion the stone as it came out. And the stone, borne with tremendous force and velocity, hit the wall, which it immediately shook and knocked down, and was itself broken into many fragments and scattered, hurling the pieces everywhere, and killing those people happening to be nearby.
But Nick Hall wants to collect scientific data about the true power of the impact. Because a cannon like this has never been fired in our lifetime, this experiment is invaluable for ballistics experts and military historians. White stakes are set up directly in front of the cannon mouth at precise 50-centimeter intervals, so that the exact speed of the cannonball can be measured.
If we measure the speed that the ball is going, we can weigh it. We'll then know the energy in the projectile. We can scale that up to give an idea of the exact power of Urban's bombards at the siege of Constantinople.
The cannon is loaded for a second time. Again, the explosion rocks the quarry. Again, the accuracy is exact, and further damage is inflicted on the Constantinople test wall. But can it be measured? The ball destroys the sticks at a rate of 1.2 milliseconds per 50 centimeters. The mathematical formula for energy of a projectile tells us that a ball weighing 45 kilos and moving at 260 meters per second will smash into its target with 1,521 kilojoules of energy. This is greater than the energy delivered by many modern tank shells.
This is a real vindication of medieval technology.
With careful placement of his cannon, Mehmet brought the city of Constantinople to heel in just 8 weeks.
The fall of Constantinople in 1453 is a tremendously significant event.
History was changed forever. An Islamic sultan had captured the prize of Christianity and stood on the steps of Europe.
The conquest of Constantinople became a blueprint for the way that the Muslims would attack major centers in the West. And of course, they were going to be attacked again and again and again. And if they could have conquered all those cities, they would have imposed Muslim rule.
And what happened to Constantine and the city itself?
He died in the fighting. So he went to his death defending the city, and that was a martyr's, the cause of the martyr, and he gave his life for Christianity and his city.
Yet Constantinople, a settlement for 10,000 years, lived on.
Constantinople had another life as an Ottoman capital, and it was beautified and went into a new phase of life as a spectacular Ottoman capital.
From the awesome power of the Turkish bombard to the organic early bio-warfare of the ancient Maya, the battle over history's mega forts has produced some ingenious attack and defense systems. Whatever the local needs or resources, the aim has always been the same: to control the castles